anointed canvas where your testimony becomes art.
Hi, my name is Xia, and this is Testimony. Share my story with my testimony. Started from my parents. I honestly believe that I was made out of toxicity because them two people could not stand each other. They had an extremely violent relationship, blow for blow, fist fights. My mom hit my dad with a car. My dad tried to kill my mom with a black widow. And then, boom, I was here, the firstborn out of their kids. Number 4 out of 6 kids that my mom has. Number 1 out of 5 kids. When I was born, I latched to my grandma a lot more than my mother. Eventually, she passed. She was a heavy smoker. I grew up in a real divided family. My aunts and uncles did not like me and my siblings, specifically out of all of my mom's kids, because we were half black. When my grandmother died, I got extremely suicidal at a very young age. Say I was 3, 4. I was in pre-K, and it was bad. My mom was involved in a lot of witchcraft. On top of me getting bullied and being part of all those rituals, I had nothing but demons just brewing. They was having a party in there. When you're not under your own authority and somebody else has authority over you, and sadly you came out of that person, that's just the way it is. I grew up getting cleansings at the... I never learned exactly what they called female witches. Like, I learned different terms growing up: high priestess, simply witches. I grew up in and out of botanicas. Through the ages about 2, 3 to 10, while I was still living in Jersey. I was born in Jersey, slightly raised in Jersey. But through those ages, I was involved in a lot of ritualistic cleansings, readings. I grew up around a lot of spiritual. I used to see dead kids. I used to get followed by spirits. To this day, I still see shadow people. I was given over at a very young age to a principality. I was married to a principality at a very young age through a ritual where I was molested by a woman. I grew up in abuse, manipulation, psychological abuse on my mom's end, physical and psychological abuse on my father's end. There was never a time where there was a peaceful transaction unless the cops were present. I went through a lot of witnessing. My father and my mother argued. They didn't have to be in the same home or in a relationship for them to consistently get into altercations. Eventually, my dad got married when I was about 7. That woman was just as abusive as him, not as physically abusive, more mentally abusive. She rarely got physical. I guess due to issues of her not wanting to be involved in anything violent with my mother. His wife wasn't really things that you would expect stepmothers could do out of the kindness of their heart. She did out of pettiness. So to get reactions from my mother, as far as doing hair, doing nails, she did it because she knew it would make my mother react. There were certain boundaries that my mom had as far as me and what was done with me physically that she consistently crossed. Um, to get reactions out of my mom. So when he got married and that woman consistently crossed boundaries, that just created more drama that I had to witness. I got into a lot of fights at a young age, mostly leading to I got into an in-school fight, but that's more of a Jersey thing when it comes to kids that don't really acknowledge drama in school. I had enough going outside of school to be entertaining stuff in school at a young age. So it would be more like as soon as the bell rang, I'd be walking home and it wanted to fight. So I was constantly on fights. A lot of teachers didn't like me because they thought that I was a trouble kid, even though it was clear that I wasn't. I got bullied by students and teachers. Um, I was raised like a boy. So altercations that got into, I reacted like a boy. I didn't get into arguments like girls. I didn't gossip like girls. It actually made me an outcast that I didn't act like a girl. My father forced me to be more like a boy. He raised me as in, what are you crying for? You have nothing to cry about. Stop being sensitive, toughen up. I didn't get abused with whoopings by him all the time. We more got abused. I say we because it was me and my brothers from the same father, but we more got abused as far as exercise. And if he did whoop us, he made sure that it hurt. He also didn't believe in help. We were not allowed to help each other. I'll never forget the day that he was teaching my youngest brother how to swim and threw him into the deep end knowing that he couldn't swim and told him to doggy paddle, and he almost drowned and I almost drowned, saved from drowning. And I got in trouble for helping him. Growing up, I always felt like my father cared more for his pets than his children. If I couldn't learn something quick enough, there was a day that my brothers didn't get to eat because I couldn't figure out a long division problem quick enough. It took me hours and we didn't eat during that whole period of time. Family sat by and watched as this happened. Not going to speak like there were no good moments, but there were good moments. The good moments actually due to my heart posture, my whole life, the good moments is what helped me tolerate bad my whole life. So eventually my dad left. He had more kids with that woman that he married. They broke up and it was a violent breakup because he was beating on her as he did my mother and previous woman. He had a hand problem. But eventually he left because that woman moved to California. He went to go see the two kids that he had with her. My dad let a lot of things slide, I think for the same reason that my mom let a lot of things slide with her partners. I think the lack of love, which also taught me how to not love myself correctly and got me into a lot of issues eventually, is why he let certain things slide with partners that he had and why my mother let certain things slide with partners that she had as far as verbal abuse from partners and certain actions from partners. After my dad's wife had her first child, I tried to catch him because she was about to fall asleep and he went to go crawl off her chest. And instead of letting me catch him, she pushed me to the side. And at the time, we had a pull-out couch bed. And I fell back and I still have the scar to this day because when she pushed me, my elbow busted open. I had to go get stitches. And she never, from my knowledge, she never caught anything for that from anyone other than my mother. But yes, eventually he left to go see those kids, told us he'd be back. He never came back. I didn't see my dad for years after that. We got evicted a lot. My mom used to lean on this woman after her mother died. That's when I got around a lot of witchcraft. That's when the molestation happened. That's when extra rituals happened. That's when learning about deities happened, Santeria, the wanting to learn how to read cards. That's where like my admiration and my wanting to be near and learn about the darker side of the spiritual. Around that same time, I started going to football. I was the only girl on the football team. I chose football. I chose a lot of sports because, again, I was raised like a boy. So I always wanted to be part of something that was more physically rough, something that allowed me to get the rage out. When I got into football, I was, again, the only girl on the team. I was one of their best defensive players, but I never made it to a game because around that time I started limping after a practice, after one of my last practices. I couldn't figure out where the limp came from. Eventually, my mom told me that when I was born, I had to get cast on my legs, but she was only able to do one because she was always with me and my brothers alone. She was always taking care of us alone, really, mainly. So I never knew about that. I never knew that there was something wrong with my body because she never made me aware of it. So eventually I started going to physical therapy. That stopped my whole sports run. I went to physical therapy. One of the physical therapists was like, you should get her checked for scoliosis because this limp and she kind of seems unleveled at her pelvic area. You should go get her checked because that usually comes from scoliosis. That's when my mom decided to tell that I needed cath when I was younger, which I didn't know until that moment. And by the time I tried to get back into football, I couldn't because when she did go get me checked, they made it clear that I did have scoliosis. I had a severe double curve, which means I had a full S on my back. Couldn't do sports. I started getting bullied even more because I couldn't wear a regular book bag. I had to roll around a little book bag that looked like a suitcase. Then the process of getting my brace done started. In that process, I started to break into fevers because of the stress of wearing the brace. I wasn't used to falling asleep with something like that. And my mom didn't really have too much of a concern for it. She would go out and get medicine, but she would never really be there for moral or emotional support. There's a lot of times where I was stuck in bed or stuck that she would be out or leave anyways, knowing that I was in a position where I was trying to figure out my body, trying to figure out what's going on. Eventually that got a lot worse by the time I got into middle school. Earlier on, because it got worse in middle school, this is another topic, but due to the molestation from the witchcraft and being in the witchcraft, I got attacked by what I now know are spirits of perversion, spirit of perversion. I took a big liking to girls. I was gay for a while. Boys did not catch my attention at all. I used to act like a boy with girls. I used to always want to be the boyfriend. I played with girls' feelings. I put girls through a lot. I'll say that. I did. I I thought to be a boy and to be the boy of the relationship meant you had to be a flake. I got my first surgery in 8th grade. I missed a good 2 months of school after that surgery. I almost failed 8th grade. It took away my opportunity of going to early college. There was a youth college that it was a college you go to in place of going to high school. Then we moved to Jersey. When I was in 8th grade, I was in North Carolina. We moved back to Jersey. I reunited with my dad. We were staying with him for a while in his trailer. Things went back to being abusive. My mom was playing with him. I guess he was trying to admit that he had actual feelings for her still. She chose to play with him. And we got abused as the outcome. My brother wasn't yet comfortable with getting close to my dad, so they got into an argument one day, and I went to tell my dad, well, maybe he's not comfortable speaking to you after all this time. My dad smacked me. I smacked him back. That was the third genuine altercation I got into with my father since we reunited. The second altercation we got into was I told him that he was never a real father because he wasn't. He wasn't really there. I never really had a father figure. I told him that my sister was more of a father than he was because she was the one that was always helping my mom with the bills. She was the one always watching us when my mom wasn't around. And I told him he had no place to speak to me as a father when he wasn't a father. Me and him got into a physical altercation over that because I called my mom because of the back and forth, and he snatched my phone away from me, and I fought him over my phone. And the first altercation we ever got into from being back, him and my little brother, my youngest brother, got into an altercation. And instead of my brother hitting him, he hit his TV and he broke his TV. And he locked him outside in the dark. And he told me that I better not try to save him. I got up and continued to go save him anyways. And he tried to lock me inside of the room and hold the door. I pushed the door off the hinges and pushed him with it. And I opened the door for my brother and let him in. Eventually we left because he tried to kill my second youngest brother. He tried to strangle him to death. So we ended up moving to Florida. I was 14 at the time when we moved to Florida. By the time we got to Florida, we were with my uncle. We had to live with my uncle because my mom did not have the funds. And actually, before we left Jersey, we ended up staying with my second oldest sister's father because we couldn't stay with my father anymore while my mom built up the money to get plane tickets because of the situation of him trying to kill my brother. I graduated from 8th grade. Shortly after graduating from 8th grade, then we moved to Florida. We caught the plane to Florida. We moved in with my uncle. He was very abusive with his kid, and he was abusive towards his wife. So it was just like bouncing from one super traumatic situation into another, and it's not happening to you, but that's what pisses you off more. The fact that you're watching somebody abuse their children while you're supposed to be helping somebody that was just in the same situation get out of that situation, and you're doing the same thing. My cousin, one of my uncle's sons, had started, watching gay sexual content, and he shamed him for that, which I understand is not of God, but that is your child. There's a gentler way to lead them into knowing that it's wrong. But he shamed him for that. He beat him and he had him grounded for a while, an unnecessary time. Wouldn't let him out of the room for anything. He wasn't allowed to go outside. He was only allowed out of his room to clean and go back in. like a maid or a slave. I asked his son to come out and help me with dinner one day because I wanted to help him get out of the room. So technically he was doing something for the home, but he was helping me with it. So I figured it would be an issue. He got upset because his son was outside of the room for too long. I said, you really don't have to bully him, because he started cursing his son out, started getting him. I said, you really don't have to bully him like that. You're really being very wrong towards him. I said, he was just out here helping me cook. You don't have to be that way towards him. He started cussing me out. I said, you need to stop doing that. He called me out of my name. I said, if you call me that again, I'm going to punch you in the face. He called me it again. I got up quietly and I punched him in the face. There was a whole altercation. He punched me in my forehead. I kept piecing him up. I threw his Christmas tree at him. The cops were called. The cops were chasing me as I was chasing him. I didn't accidentally grab the fishing rod. I grabbed the fishing rod to hit him with it, but I accidentally got my mom's ear caught in the hook in the process and ripped her ear. They were going to arrest me for aggravated assault, but instead, during the time I had started cutting myself due to everything that was happening in Jersey and how distant I felt like my mom was from me, and at the time, feeling like my dad didn't love me. And so I had started cutting, so my mom got them to send me to a mental hospital instead of being arrested. When I got to the mental hospital, it just made it 1,000 times worse, because when I got there were kids from the age that I was depressed and suicidal, which was about 3, 4, 5. From that age, there was kids about as young as that in there that wanted to kill themselves, and it just made the situation a whole lot worse. Their rule was that you had to be in there for 3 days and 3 nights. So that was right before I started up a lot. That was actually towards the December month of my freshman year. Earlier that year, I actually had to get my second surgery in September. It wasn't as bad as my first surgery. It hurt. I missed about a month of school for that. But, fast forwarding to where I was at. December, mental hospital. After I got out of the mental hospital, my uncle kept his distance from me. Not really wanting to be near me. I guess I put some fear in him, rightfully so, because he was abusive. His wife didn't feel the same way towards me. His wife, however, she actually continued to get me Christmas presents, and shortly after my surgery, she actually got me tickets to go see Chris Brown, which I always wanted to do at that time. So she actually always tended to me. She was always very good to me. She was always very kind to me. After that year, after I got back around January, February, I got with my first boyfriend as far as my first serious relationship, because I know serious relationships don't start until high school. So I got with my first boyfriend, my first serious boyfriend. I had a lot of issues in high school due to boys liking me and me not liking them, or girls not liking me for whatever reason that they could come up with. He eventually cheated on me. I got into a group of friends, not the best group. The girls were very flip-floppy, very fake. And then around the age of 15, I started getting into reading tarot cards, genuinely getting into tarot cards, actually learning, educating myself on tarot cards, learning how to read people without the book needed, or just reading strictly off of what I thought was a psychic gift at the time. I genuinely thought that I was one of the most powerful witches to walk this earth. I thought that there was nobody that could touch me. I got deep into the witchcraft. At the time, after my boyfriend cheated on me, I started messing with another boy. During the time of messing with that boy, he took my virginity. I say took because I did not give it to him. I actually said no multiple times. I never stopped messing with him because I did catch very deep feelings for him. I caught deep feelings for him. Sounds very stupid. I know I was 15. I made some very dumb decisions. 14, I started getting into weed right around the same time that I started dating my first boyfriend. I felt like that helped somewhat. But yeah, when I got with the first boy, he took my virginity. I did not give it to him. Later interactions between us as far as sexually, that was all me because I did have feelings for him before he took my virginity, and they just didn't go away. But then that comes from not loving yourself, being raised by parents that didn't love themselves or love you enough to want to love themselves. I was involved with him for about a year, and that was my first domestic violence relationship. He put his hands on me all the way to the end, and in the end, that was the only time I hit him back. I was hanging with girls that did not have my back, girls that were very, I guess, the same as me, but with everybody else. So people pleasing to the crowd, as I was people pleasing in a more conservative group. I got deeper into the witchcraft as my high school years went on. I started learning how to do spells. I started learning how to do spells towards people, spells for money, spells for health, spells to get rid of people, not kill people clearly, but to get them out of my space so that I didn't have to be bothered by people. Started learning how to do love spells to make people that I was interested in talk to me more. After messing with that boy, I moved on to another boy about a year later. He played with me. My whole high school year was a game. All of my high school years were a game. Especially for me, I was the game, and I got played all the time by friends. Intimate relationships. It was a mess. Eventually, by the end of high school, I cut off those fake friends, but I fell into a deep depression because of it. So my weight went from 155, 145, all the way down to 116 within a month. I hated school so much that I graduated early. I went to the graduation with everybody else, but I was done with school before everybody else. I strengthened my gift in witchcraft. I use quotation marks because it's not a gift. It's disobedience towards God. It's a trick that the devil teaches you. It's a magic trick that the devil teaches you. So I went from that to getting into what I say is the relationship with my first ever love, like my genuine love. Person we started off really good, but through time, we started to realize, and I started to realize that I wasn't as grown and matured as I thought I was, and that I couldn't handle his damages because I haven't even dealt with mine. We got into a very abusive relationship, a very toxic and demonic relationship. I started to teach him witchcraft. He didn't really take interest in doing it, but he took interest in me doing it. I started teaching him about tarot cards, deeper aspects of the spiritual within the demonic end. And eventually, those demons, knowing that that was who God wanted for me, attempted to kill us multiple times. My mom also did witchcraft towards us. His mother always did it. Always did? I'm gonna take that from Holy Spirit. She always did, as did my mother. They always did witchcraft towards us. They did not like us together, which I also know was a deeper demonic issue. That was who God wanted me with from the beginning of time. And that being a heavenly relationship, even though we were being extremely demonic at the time, was not something that those demons wanted to see bloom. We were putting hands on each other. I attempted to commit suicide with him in the car. So I got into a crash trying to take myself out, but he was in the car. So I almost took him out in the process. We were extremely demonic at the time. We were always drinking, always smoking. We never really prayed. Us praying was extremely rare. We believed in God. We thought that we were good people, and we really weren't. We accepted each other's demons, devoured each other's demons, bloomed in our demons. Bloomed all the way until it turned its ugliest. We eventually separated after our car crash. During the car crash, when I got taken to the hospital tried to hide me in their system. I don't know if they were trying to traffic me, kidnap me, what, but they changed my name and everything. And by the grace of God, I got out. I think at that time, that was the most I prayed. 4 days straight, barely eating, really fasting without knowing that I was fasting, and praying. Hearing the voice of God without knowing that I was hearing the voice of God. Hearing that everything was going to be fine, that I was going to get out soon, that He wouldn't let anything else happen to me. In case anybody wants to know what hospital did it, it was Grady. It was Grady. I have to forgive them because I have a deep hatred to them to this day. Every time I see a Grady car, my body beats and I start to shake. I have a deep hate for Grady Hospital. I really genuinely have to forgive that hospital brand and the workers and everything that belongs to Grady for my sake. Eventually, me and him got back together after everybody said that they didn't want us back together and that it would be stupid, but we got back together anyways and tried again. Eventually, I got pregnant, and the domestic part of the relationship only got worse on our end. It was really bad from my end and his end, but at that time, I feel like I was the main aggressor as far as physically. Again, with the smoking all the time, drinking, on top of going through things with my mother, on top of everything that we was going through with my mom, that's really what triggered it. That's where everything started to go downhill. When he got there, at first it was all good, peaches and cream. Then we were sitting on the couch one day because we were supposed to have like a family movie night. And while me and him were sitting on the couch, my mom walked up and she was like, I don't know why you got with this bum N-word. You should have got you with an N-word that got his own place, got his own house. You shouldn't be with somebody like this. He's a bum. Mind you, she wasn't with the best man herself. But that's when things started to go downhill because I took his defense, and at that time, with the growth that he was at, he took that as I didn't think he could stand up for himself, when really in all reality, I didn't want him to be put into a position where it was seen as him disrespecting my mother for standing up for himself. So I chose to speak up for him. Uh, After that, everything just went downhill. Consistent arguments on top of whatever witchcraft that my mom was doing. It was consistent arguments. Eventually went back into physical uh, abuse, more so on my end at that time. Is more psychological abuse, unknowingly psychological abuse, just not enough consideration, not enough care. We weren't in our rightful places as far as what God made us to be and who God made us to be for each other at all. I eventually, within that time, got pregnant with our first child. We went through a lot of domestic violence with each other during all the pregnancies. That time specifically, it was just a lot going on. We ended up moving back to his mother's house due to all of the drama at my mother's house. And there was still drama over there. Drama between his stepfather, his mother, having comments towards us in our relationship, including the things that me and him were going through. Eventually, I gave birth to our first son. And we were still going through it. It was just a lot of years of back and forth, not knowing why we're doing it, but it was happening, not wanting to hurt each other, but we were hurting each other. Then I got pregnant with our second son shortly after the first was born. We were still going through it. We were going through it so bad at the time. It started to lean more towards him with the physical abuse. Me seeing how toxic we were getting, it only felt like it was getting worse. So I moved to Jersey, where I had certain family at the time still. During that move, I wasn't talking to him for a while. It was an on and off situation. I was over there for about 2 months. There was certain drama situations as far as my siblings that lived there, but I never got involved because what do I look like being pregnant that far along and arguing with you when I just want to kick my feet up and eat? So I wasn't really in no drama. Eventually, I started talking to my significant other again, and we started off more on the godly foot. I still had a lot of demons, but it was still on the godly foot. He was teaching me how to Bible study. We made friends that are still friends that would teach us how to Bible study. We're wise counsel at the time. He came to come get me. So he missed me, I guess. But we attempted to become a family again. I was still battling demons because shortly before I left to Jersey, I burned all my tarot cards. That was one of my surrenders to God. And I didn't think about how hard I was going to get attacked by that. But when I got back, those demons went right back into place. He still had demons he was battling with that he wasn't aware of, I wasn't aware of. My own. It went back into physical on his end, verbal, emotional, mental on my end. And it went on for a really long time. I ended up getting pregnant with our third child, our daughter. His friends didn't really, well, at this time I only saw them as his friends just due to everything that I was going through mentally, all the attacks that I was going through. And at the time I didn't really feel as though they got what was going on or really had my back as far as what was going on. So I went to go give birth to my daughter. He didn't come to the hospital with me. He wasn't allowed to, and plus he had to watch our 2 other kids. I gave birth. My daughter ended up in NICU before we could even leave the hospital due to her sugar levels going down, way down, out of nowhere, and a lung issue, which God saved her from, thank God. But when I got back to the house, we got into something, cops were called, and I ended up leaving again. Went to go live with my mother again, with my kids, and I ended up completely and utterly rebelling against God. I started being a whore. I can say whore. By biblical terms, I was being a whore. Started dabbling in witchcraft again. Started stripping. I went completely downhill. Of course, I took care of my kids, but when the nighttime hit, I rebelled. Completely rebelled. At a certain point in time, God was going to have my life taken in the worst way. He was going to lift his hands up off of me and let whatever happen, happen. There was a lot of drama going on with my mother due to her still being in witchcraft, a lot of physical altercations or almost physical altercations, arguments, screaming back and forth, a lot of drama and chaos and just more trauma going on. It got so bad to the point where I finally, because I wasn't talking to the father of my kids at the time, I finally got back in contact with him and told him that I needed him to come get our kids because I didn't want them part of the drama no more. He complied fully. He was extremely happy to hear about getting his kids. I continued on my rebellion up until a certain point where I went to go to work. At the time, stripping was work. And something just fell off, and I just kept seeing myself die in my head, and I just had this really bad feeling. My stomach was turning, and I decided that I wasn't going to work, that I didn't feel like I was supposed to go to work. I called him because at the time we were building a relationship back. We weren't together, but we were building some type of friendship back. So I called him just to, vent, talk about what I felt, and God said to him the same thing God was showing me. And God showed him the same thing that God showed me of what was going to happen to me if I continued down the road that I was going down. There came a decision that I had to make on giving my life back to God or to continue to go down the road that I was going down. And I gave my yes to God. And in the process, I was cleaned completely, almost completely. God took me as far as he could and helped me as far as he could and took whatever he could without me being hurt in the process too deeply. And the rest was my job to work on as God held my hand. I moved back in with my now husband and healthier than we ever were. It's in the bag though. I just forgot to put it on. I carry it with me everywhere. I just be forgetting to put it on. Oh yeah, my husband here in a minute because he proposed. Give me a second. Carry it with me everywhere I go. This is just an extra little ring. My grandma ring. My husband. With our 3 kids, living healthily together, pray every day, stay close to God, stick to our obedience. Have we had some trauma responses to each other, disagreements, arguments? Nowhere near as much in the past. I'd say since we've been together, a total of 5 arguments, genuine arguments. And unlike the past, we make up instantly, almost instantly afterward. If it's in the same night, to me, it's instantly. But before we lay our heads down, we are figuring out what happened. We pray. There have been attacks since we got back, not between us, but more so from people that didn't want us together, and demons that don't want us together, and principalities that don't want us together. And we've been fighting them and winning with flying colors. But yes, God is not done with me. This is just a part of my testimony, because I do got healing to do. Still got more healing. Still got things that God needs to work on with me. And I am complying more. I used to argue with God a lot. Don't argue with God. But I used to argue with God a lot. Now I'm a lot more compliant, because I'm learning to trust. That's a big issue with me, with how I grew up and the things that I've been through in the past years. But I'm learning to trust, and I'm learning to trust God most of all, and trust in the plan that He has for me, and trust that He never wants to see me in pain. God never wants to see you in pain. God never wants you hurting. God wants the best for you. And that's something that I have to accept for myself, and I'm continuing to accept for myself, because I used to, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, but I used to see God as one of my parents, or one of my exes, or the old version of my husband. I used to see God as somebody that didn't care what was done to me, that didn't care what I had to go through, that just wanted to test my strength, that just wanted to treat me like a rubber band, when God doesn't want to treat you like a rubber band. If you was a rubber band, God made you the strongest one. You are built for what you are given, and you're built to be able to hear what He wants for you. And that's something that I've been learning as I've been getting more delivered from things that wanted me to see it as otherwise, or make me see it as God is some type of downer drug, or some downer high that people are on. No, God is, I'm clean. God is true soberness. Then God is the reason I am still here today. I done tried to kill myself so many times, and He ain't let me go nowhere. If God hated me, I'm pretty sure I'd be dead and in hell by now. So that's my testimony.